What's up guys, Kyle here again, and this tube amp guy is trying out a Line 6 Helix today. Let's do it! Okay guys, hope you're doing great out there today. If this is your first time here at my channel, my name is Kyle, and what I do is I take awesome high gain amplifiers or modelers, cabs, overdrives, guitars, and pickups. I record them with a simple SM57 setup, and I give you guys the unprocessed audio on your end. I don't know why my voice went high like that. So if you're into E standard thrash riffs, drop C hardcore riffs, and dudes who have more gear than brain cells, you're in the right place. Consider hitting that like button if you liked the video and subscribing on the way out so you don't miss any more of my stuff. Thanks! So today I am trying something a little bit different, and really this is an opportunity provided to me by not only Line 6 but by Fluff, who actually hooked me up with Line 6. So shout out to Fluff, Riffs, Beards, and Gear. I'm sure you guys are familiar with his channel, but if you're not, you should definitely check him out. So Line 6 was kind enough to send out a Helix to me, and I've actually had this unit in my possession for about 3 months. They've let me keep it for quite a long time, really get familiar with it, learn the ins and outs of it. There is still so much in this unit that I have not even touched. I haven't even scratched the surface of the capabilities of this thing, and I can tell you that it's honestly awesome. I'm actually super impressed with it. I bought a Line 6, so I actually went out and bought the Pod Go unit based on it having the exact same modeling as the Helix. Now, it doesn't have nearly as much DSP or processing power in it that the Helix does, but it does contain the same modeling. So the amp models, the effects, the cab sims, those are all gonna sound the same from this massive $1,600 unit down into that small, I believe that they're 600 bucks now, Pod Go. Now, the reason that I did that is when I heard the amp modeling software on this thing, I was really impressed. I was genuinely impressed. It had been a long time since I had used a Line 6 product, and let's just say things have come a long ways. So what I'm gonna do with this video, I'm not gonna deep dive into all the functions and everything else because there's a million videos out there doing that. What I am gonna do, I am gonna give you the perspective of this unit basically as a preamp and effects unit going into the tube power section of a tube amplifier. Because it's a tube amplifier, of course it's gonna have a tube power section. I really enjoy redundancy. But yeah, most of the people coming to my channel are not coming here to get a full-on effects unit review, because that's just not really what I do, and genuinely that's not really what I'm interested in. What I'm interested in is, can I buy one of these units for myself, and will the modeling in it be very accurate to all of the real tube amps out there? So essentially, if somebody's gonna buy this and take it on tour, or they buy it and they have a tube power amp, or they have a regular tube amp, say like a PV5150 that they really love, but they want different flavors for recording and playing live and stuff, will the modeling in this unit kind of compete with the heads that they're modeled after enough so that you don't have to go out and buy a million real amps like, you know, someone who is as stupid as myself would do? You can have it all packed into one unit. So we're gonna go in, I'm gonna explore the amp models in here. A lot of the high gain amp models are amps that I own, so I can give you guys a pretty honest opinion, honest and accurate to the real deal of how the modeling in this thing works. So the very first clip that you guys heard just now was the PV Panama model with a TS9 style overdrive out front. Again, that is going into the effects return of my Mezzabarba M0 here. And I can honestly tell you, it sounds really good. And more importantly, the feel is there. Now, I don't know if that's being provided by the tube power section. I'm gonna guess probably not, because I really don't have this turned up very loud. The feel of the amp models in here is pretty true to real life. So that's what's really surprising. That's something that a lot of people complain about, especially with like Kempers and stuff like that, is that the feel between a real tube amp and its modeling counterpart in whatever modeler you decide to buy is always way off. It feels way more stiff, it feels more digital. This feels really good, and there's actually in here, you've got all of your general EQ controls, but when you scroll over, there's stuff in here that you can't control on a real tube amp, but these are the things that really give you control over how the modeling feels. So you've got the sag right here, which is huge, because tube amp sag, even in tight amps, they will have some sag to the power section, and that is something that I've always found kind of missing in the modeling stuff, is everything just felt really immediate and really easy. Here, not really. I mean, you can turn that sag up quite a bit and it slows down the reaction of the amp. It makes the amp a little harder to play. It's really cool, honestly. So you've also got bias controls over here. The hum, I'm not exactly sure what that does, so sorry Line 6, I didn't look into the hum or the ripple, but I can tell you the sag, the bias, all that stuff, that actually I have found very, very useful. So other than that, there is the resonance control over here on the PV, and some of the controls on these amp models are going to model the controls on the amp in real life. So we'll kind of take a dive into a few of those. So in my little signal effects chain here, all I have is my 808, an 808, not a TS9, and I have it dialed how I would dial it in real life. I've got the level all the way up, I've got the gain all the way down, and I've got the tone about 1 o'clock, a little bit more than that to get some bite on it. So actually, let's roll that tone back to about noon, because that's where most people are going to use it. I've got just a noise gate in between the overdrive pedal and the amp, and then I've got a noise gate after the amp just to make sure that things stay quiet when I'm not playing. That is it. I have nothing else in here. Going through the Mezza Barba power section into an Ampeg V412 cabinet with UK Celestion Vintage 30s SM57 directly on the speaker where the dust cap meets the cone. Let's hear some tones. So that to me, pretty accurate, pretty true to form. The differences that I am noticing, I would say, are it's a little brighter than it would be in real life with the way that the controls are set now, but at the same time, I just want it to sound similar. I don't care if the controls sound the same, set at the same settings as they would in real life. As long as I can get it sounding close, that's all that matters to me, and honestly, it sounds pretty close. And I don't have it dialed that far off of where I would dial in real life. The only real difference is I have the presence a lot lower than I would on the real amp, and over here, if I can figure out how to navigate this again, I've got the resonance a little lower, but I think we need to pump that up because it was sounding a little thin on that low end. All right, so that sounds pretty similar to the PV5150 in my experience. It does have that Cocteau mid thing going on. It sounds really, really close, really accurate. All right, so let's actually dial that treble up a little bit and the presence up just to get a little bit more top end clarity. That sounds great. I could run out and use this setup for a show. Let's check out some of the other amp models on here because they have a lot that I am fairly familiar with. So SLO or Solo Lead 100. You guys know I have an SLO in my collection. Let's hear how it sounds with their stock settings. That sounds pretty close to me, honestly. There is this like harmonic content in an SLO 100 that you don't find in a lot of other amps, and I'm kind of hearing a little bit of that in this modeler. So somehow they've managed to capture that, but I can hear it when I play this thing. All right, very cool. Let's turn that drive down. All right, let's get the mids up, the bass up. We can leave the treble down and pull the presence up because that's how I tend to dial the SLO. All right, so that sounds pretty close. Let's actually dial the presence down. Let's dial that treble up and see what difference that makes. I like that better. It seems more mid-forward. Let's turn the sag down a little bit. This is based off an older model of the SLO, so there's no depth on here to mess with. So I'm actually going to turn the bias down a little bit too. We're gonna make this sound a little bit colder. Guys, that sounds remarkably close to an SLO 100 for being a modeler. One thing that they also got right, in the bass frequencies on the SLO 100, when you add low end, it adds some sag, and it also adds some kind of lower mid congestion too. As soon as I turn that knob up and I hit a chord, I could hear that low mid congestion. It doesn't just turn the lows up like it does on a 5150 where it's a kind of a narrow frequency. This brings more frequencies along with it. Sounds awesome to me. Let's check out another model. What else do we have here? I forget which angle the Meteor is based off of. I'm gonna guess the Fireball. Let's try that. Yeah, I mean, the way it's dialed, it's kind of muffled, but definitely seeing that right off the bat. All right, we're playing around with some of these settings here. I'm gonna get my fat fingers out of the way. This definitely needs more treble, it needs more presence. Maybe a little less present in the mids than I would expect, but let's turn that presence up a little bit more on the end. And that sounds pretty nice. Let's see what other controls we have here. We've got sag, we've got bias, master, we've got mid boost. Let's turn that on because here at Belligerent Amateur Central, we like mids. All right, so I actually feel like we have a little bit too much low end coming from the amp itself. Let's turn the depth. That sounds really, I'm actually really enjoying this model. Let's turn that bass back down. Guys, this is impressive. I have played all these amps in real life. The Engel is probably the one I'm least familiar with, but it really does remind me very much of the Engel Fireball. Let's check out, I'm not sure what the archetype lead or clean would be. Cali, rectifier, couldn't be more obvious there. All right, so we've got some booty going on, and it's a little bit stiff. Let's turn that drive up to 6. Let's turn that bass down to like 4. We got to get those mids going for sure, and then we'll turn the treble down. See if the little treble at 0 trick works on the modeler. That sounds almost exactly like I would expect it to sound on the real amp. It's maybe just a little bit less in the top end. All right, so let's dial that treble back up and see how far that gets us in the brightness. It does just like the real amp, where you pull the treble down on a rectifier and it rounds those mids out. That's what I'm always telling you guys. I think that's one of the best settings on the rectifier. This does that. It models that very, very well. I'm very impressed. Let's actually bring that presence back down. When you turn the treble back up to say around noon, it kind of scoops the mids out and makes it a little bit more pointed up top. And this is doing exactly that, exactly as it would on the real amp. All right, so they did a really good job on the rectifier modeling, 100% there. I am very impressed with that. They've got the sag turned way down. Let's turn that bias down too and see if that kind of tightens it up, makes it sound a little bit more present. Let's turn it up, back up. A little bit of difference, mostly in how the amp reacts, not so much in how it sounds. Let's turn that bias all the way down to 3. All right, so I actually think it sounds better with the bias up. It just seems a little bit livelier. All right, so let's get that volume back down. That sounds great. Good job on the rectifier. Cali 4, we're gonna skip that. German Ubersonic. That's gonna be like a Bogner Uberschall. It is very close again. Let's get that mid up. It's already much middier than the rectifier was. Let's get the drive down a little bit. Yeah, that's good. It's really good. Let's turn the mids up a little bit more. You guys know I like my mids. See what else we got here. Mahadeva. I'm guessing that that's going to be like a Shiva. I don't really care for that amp that much. I don't know what the cartographer is going to be either. So 2204, I'm very familiar with that circuit. As you can see, we're turning the master volume up and it's basically kind of adding to the saturation. That sounds a little bit more saturated than a regular 2204 would sound to me. All right, so it is sounding pretty good there. Let's turn that drive up to 7. Let's get the bass up as well. And the mids, let's turn that treble down to 4. Presence up a little bit. Honestly, not bad. It doesn't quite sound as like hit you in the chest in the mids as a real 2204 would sound, but sounds pretty good. So that is probably the furthest off of the models that I've tried so far, and yet it's still close. So that's a great sign. Let's check out a couple of the Line 6 amps real quick and see how those sound. We got the Epic. Let's start with the electric. I don't know what that's going to sound like. Really loud. That's pretty cool, whatever's going on there. We've got everything turned up a lot. Let's turn the bass down. I don't know what that is, but it reminds me a lot of my Splon Quick Rod. So that is that is pretty cool. So that one sounds good. Let's go ahead and check out the Epic. So that's pretty mid forward as well. Let's get that presence up because it seems a little muffled. Maybe dial the bass back a little bit. That's very crunchy sounding, whatever it is, and very mid forward. I'm kind of digging it. That's pretty cool. That one's very crunchy, very mid forward. Fatality. All right, so very woofy, kind of muffled up top. Let's get some more presence. Let's get some more mids. That's a really aggressive, really bright top end thing going on there. All right, so that one is cool, but it's a little bit muffled on the top end. And then Badonk seems to be one of the most popular Line 6 models. That is ridiculous. That is way too much bass. That's very modern sounding. That actually does sound pretty good. I can see why people would dig that for sure. Alright guys, that's going to do it for me. This video is going to be an hour long. What did you guys think of the Line 6 Helix? Personally, I am very impressed with a lot of the modeling of the real amps that is built into this thing. They definitely resemble the amps close enough that if you were in a recording or a live situation all day, these things would do you exactly what you need them to do. Do you exactly? I don't know. English is hard. In the room here, obviously I'm gonna notice little differences because number one, power amp is a big part of the sound, and I am putting these simulated amplifiers all through a power amp that they are not built for. Otherwise, I think that this thing is really accurate. Like it's surprisingly accurate. The modeling is surprisingly good. There's not a whole lot that I can pick out about it that I didn't like. A couple of the models were a little bit off in certain areas, but I mean, that's to be expected. It's really hard to capture these things perfectly. And again, we've got some variables like the power amp, the cabinet, everything else that are gonna kind of come into play, so it's never gonna be an exact one-to-one match. I really enjoyed this. Thank you again, Line 6, so much for sending this out to me. I'll be packing this up to send it back to them next week, and I'm honestly kind of sad that it's gonna be going because I had a lot of fun with it. Overall, I'm very happy with this thing. Line 6, you did a great job with the modeling. For somebody like me who likes things simple, who just like an amp, an overdrive, a speaker cabinet, basically want to set it up and rip. Now, as far as the effects, there are tons of other videos out there on those things. I am not good with real life effects, so I wouldn't really be the right person to judge built-in effects into these modeling units, so take that for what it's worth. I'm not gonna give my opinion on something I don't know anything about. Appreciate you guys watching. If you liked the video, hit the like button, consider subscribing on the way out. Down in the description of this video are all my support links, including my Sweetwater affiliate link, my Patreon, and my Amazon affiliate links, which I finally updated, as well as my Discord server and Facebook group. Come join the Belligerent Amateur community, hang out and talk gear with us. Hope you enjoyed the video. Kyle here again. We'll see you guys next time.